Welcome to Getting Real with the Costas. This special episode series will be an exclusive. Here, both me and my wife talk about the ins and outs of running a business, being married, developing our money mindset, our polarizing family dynamics, and taking big risks in our lives. You may have always wondered what relationships we have with our friends and family. How can we actually balance our work and our life routine? You may be wondering how we communicate as a couple, or even what our health goals and struggles are that come up in our day to day jazz. Well, you are in luck because we get to talk about all this personally and more. Completely unscripted. Welcome to Getting Real with the Costas.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode number 2 of Meeting with the Costas.
Getting Real with the Costas.
I absolutely love it. No, we're going to redo this take.
No, we're not.
No, what?
This is getting real. There's no clapping.
It is getting real. So here's the thing, right? My memory is notoriously bad. So I was like, it's Getting with the Costas. And she was like, that's not what we're doing. No one's getting with us whatsoever. But we are getting real. So I guess we're just going to clip this in. And in today's episode, we're really going to share a deep understanding and deep dive into our investments, our personal investments, the investments that we've done in business, and our most recent one, our rental property. So we'll be talking about essentially what made us want to do it, why we tried to kind of build wealth for ourselves this way, and basically talk about that. So yeah, do you want to share with them the good news before we go into this good stuff?
Well, officially on February 15th, that's when we got the keys at like late at night, super late at night, but we officially got the keys. So yeah, we're really excited. It feels like, actually, I don't know if it feels like official yet, because like, I don't know, like I've only seen it like once. I haven't even like seen the inside, but I think it feels real because like of all like the paperwork and the stuff that we had to do with like, the lawyers and stuff like that, I feel like now it's getting pretty real.
Yeah, Lorna really trusted me on this process. So whether it, because I actually ended up touring over 30 homes before we actually found this one. And although to you guys and gals on the outside, it was like super quick, like wow, they just bought a rental property out of nowhere. This process has literally spanned over the course of this entire year. So like the moment we moved into our home here last February, that's when we had decided that we had started looking. Well, we actually decided first that we wanted to buy a place in Costa Rica. So that was kind of the first thing. But and I'll let you talk on that. But it took us 9 months of searching to actually find the home, and then the actual offer and closing and getting keys and doing all the paperwork. So it's been probably, I'd say, a year and a month, or a year and 2 months. And this is it almost, I joke and say like a part-time job, because I was spending at least 10, 12 hours a week on this, building into our lives.
Yeah, so I think like, we work for ourselves and we really want to think long term, how we can really set ourselves up long term and have that kind of like generational wealth. And our first instinct was like, well, we want to look at Costa Rica because Costa Rica is supposed to be really beautiful. And, how amazing would it be to have a rental property in a place where not only we can, have like income, but like also be able to go there and have fun and enjoy and maybe even host retreats and bring our family there, and it would just be so much fun. And we are like batshit crazy because we've never been to Costa Rica before. And we had this plan that we were going to travel there for like the very first time. We were going to meet with a real estate agent and we were literally going to get everything done in 6 weeks. Like, first of all, traveling for 6 weeks is like, I've never been on a vacation for 6 weeks before, let alone like a month. Like, I think the longest time I've been on vacation was like maybe 14 days. So we're like, yeah, we'll take 6 weeks. And, to be able to like close a property like that takes a lot of work. Like we're seeing here, we even bought one in Canada and it's like a lot of work. So, buying it in a different country would be a lot more work. And we've never traveled there before. We thought, yeah, 6 weeks, travel there, get everything done, all the paperwork, and we're going to come home with a rental property. So that was a little crazy, but also like, I think we still plan to potentially do something like that in the future. It just wasn't meant to be now. And I think we realized that, like, we have to.
Yeah, we had fallen in love with that area, which is called Tamarindo, like the Tamarindo Bay. And when we started talking about Costa Rica, everything in our universe was continuously bringing up Costa Rica, Tamarindo, Costa Rica, over and over again. There's a very large entrepreneurship community that's there. And in terms of an investment, one of the big reasons why we didn't think of just a regular rental property at first was because we had a lot of friends who had a lot of terror renters, and they had bad rental stories. And we were thinking to ourselves, I think, actually using it like an Airbnb, right? Which is, we were gonna have people maybe in it for 2 weeks at a time, not really have someone staying there full time, and then we would get to use it as well too. In terms of the walls that we really got, the wall wasn't so much price. The price was really respectable places over there. The biggest thing was a foreign person getting a mortgage in another country. That was kind of the huge blockade. And what made it kind of a reality for us was when I forget what her who was the realtor's name?
Dominique.
Yeah, Dominique. She told us that we would be on a 1.5-year wait list for a mortgage, and that would be a 1.5 year for us for them to tell us yes or no. So not even like a 1.5 year guaranteed. So when we were chatting, that's when I was like, well, we have the money now. We want to invest now, and I think you and I still want a place in another country for sure.
I don't know, because it's like, I think we need to do more traveling because we don't even know where we would want to live, right? So it's like, obviously we're going to Greece for our honeymoon, and then we're probably going to make a trip out to Costa Rica because that just makes sense. I mean, our last name is Costa. I mean, Costa. We definitely have to go to Costa Rica. But like, I don't know about you, but like, I feel like I would kind of get sick of like the same place. And I thought about that, and I'm like, if you have a place and you go there every time, you get to meet people, and you get to stay connected with the same people. You get to build those friendships and those relationships there. So like, that would be so much fun. Like, every time we're going up, we can hang out with the same people, create like a little tribe there. Like, it'd be so much fun. But for me, like, I am somebody who I like routine, but at the same time, like, I like trying different hotels and different locations. Like, even when we go on those like 3-4 day trips or 1 or 2 day trips, we never go to the same place, no matter how good the place is. Like, we like to try different things. So I don't know, I think it would be cool to have like the same place, but I don't know, I think traveling to all like Japan, we want to travel to. Like, there's so many nice places in the world, like Barbados and Aruba and all these different places that I would love to really go visit. And I feel like the more that we travel, the more we can get a better understanding of like where we actually would want to settle in, if that is the case, or we just keep traveling, because the reality is like, we can work from wherever, which is the benefit.
Yeah, I agree with you there, where I think we were over ambitious in thinking that because it was so beautiful and we had done a bucket ton of research there, that we would go to a place and fall in love with it. But we have the two clients that basically have, well, a lot of our clients have rental properties, which is kind of, a big indicator to us that they were green lights. But this couple that I coach, they have a spot in another country, and they actually, over the span of 10 years, they rented in Barbados all along the like basically all along the island, and then they started renting around the same place because they fell in love with that kind of city in the area. And then it was that point where they were like, we have been here for 10 years. We still love this place. They play a lot of golf, and there's a golf course that they're right off of. So for them, they were like, the amount we're traveling here versus what it would be to own a place makes sense. And that was kind of their decision from there. But I think, unless we start to do that traveling and actually experience those other places, we're not going to know, because we could fall in love with a completely different other place, and that be kind of something that we have, right?
Yeah, it was just so crazy how like we just randomly chose Costa Rica, and like Andrew said briefly, everybody that we talked to was like, I'm going on vacation to Costa Rica. I spoke to my cousin, he was like, I'm thinking of moving to Costa Rica. And then it's like, we speak to somebody else and they're like, Costa Rica is amazing. Like we just, whenever we were having a conversation, Costa Rica was brought up so many times. Like even remember when my aunt was messaging me and she's like, oh, there's like a presentation of the people that were
like people looking to buy for the first time in Costa Rica. And they actually had a community for Canadians, where a Canadian person was building buildings there.
So it was just like everything was lining up. And at this point, like I was very in tune with my intuition. I think you were starting to like get more in tune with your intuition as well too, and like seeing the signs of like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and like everything was just lining up so perfectly. But at the same time, it wasn't meant to be at that time. And I think that's like a beautiful lesson that like you can have these really good intentions and these goals and these like dreams, and you don't have to give up on it just because it didn't work the first time. Like there's so many more years that you can work on your goals and like have these accomplishments, but also like there is another plan. Like Andrew and I didn't just say like, oh, Costa Rica's not going to work out, so we're just not going to do this. We were like, okay, what's the next step? Like what can we do now? Right? There was a lot of options for us to wait a year and a half. We're like, no, we want to do this now. And it's not a matter of like settling, but it's like what makes sense right now. So it's like finding that balance of like something that you still want to do, but it also has to make sense. Because I think when we were thinking about buying a property here, we were like, after thinking about Costa Rica, we're like, literally, like, that's going to be shitty.
She was not excited at all. You were so like, why are we going to buy a place? It's probably going to be run down. You're talking about renters. Like, I think because we came off such a huge high with Costa Rica.
I mean, being able to be in Costa Rica for 6 months out of the year or whatever, like, who, like, and then all of a sudden we're just going to buy a place here where it's shitty and it's cold and we're going to have renters take care of. I'm like, that's such a big jump. Like it's such a big difference,
And we had also come off of a lot of horror stories too. And that's the thing. There are a lot of unseens that people don't tell you about renting. However, we're so fortunate and blessed that our community and a lot of our clients, they've already gone through this process. And I'm a big believer in like in getting the full picture, right? You're always going to have those horror stories, but when I would listen to those horror stories, it was always, I rented to a friend of mine and then my friend stopped paying and our relationship fell through. That's not a proper tenant relationship, right? Or, I wanted some cash on the side, so I rented out my garage and then someone destroyed it. Like all of these things were people who didn't really do it the right way and who just wanted to do something quick instead of being intentional and having right processes. Because all of our clients, like, I mean, we have a client who literally has 6 rental properties, right? Our mortgage advisor, the man who did our mortgages, has 16 properties. And they're, if done properly, it's a great way to be able to build a tool and investment to have someone else pay a mortgage and your money continues to grow. I think when we were talking about it, we really had a couple of options. Option number one was we sit on this pile of money that we had, right? And when we thought about that, it's like economy wasn't great. The banks weren't, you're going to get 1% at the bank. You're going to put it into some type of a fund or something like that. You might lose 6 or 7% because everything is low right now. And our plan when we talked with it was like, this is a property we're going to hold for 3 to 5 years and then sell to buy something somewhere else. The option of being able to, if we wanted to buy something in a different country or look at a different option, us being able to have that option was really, really important. And that money sitting there wasn't going to do us any good, right?
Mhm.
We'd also talked about for you, which we did, we used some of that money to you wanted to work with a coach, right, on your business. So some of that went there, but for me, it was like, if we don't invest in something now, it's just going to be more and more expensive down the road. And that's like, I don't think people realize there is a cost to missing an opportunity in everything in your life. You know, people think, let me wait a year for this program or for this person, and then it ends up being more expensive and you still can't afford it. Or even with this house here, right? When we went to buy this house, we were like, holy shit, houses cost a bucket ton of money. And like, even some of these offers, like, you know, well, we took a look at a house in Hamilton and it was not a good spot. For those of you who know Hamilton, Hamilton's not a good place. But when we bought this house here, buying, even when we did, when it was really tight, I mean, we got an appraisal. Our home was worth 300,000 more than what we paid for, and like, it put us in a good position. So like, it's one of those things where the right time is right now. If it makes sense for you, and of course, like, I'm a math guy, we looked at the payments, we made sure it was something that we could work. You never want to over leverage yourself, but really, if you have the opportunity now, this is when you have to go and do it.
Yeah, and it's like, I think it's like finding that middle ground of, I think so many people want instant gratification. Like, how can I have success now? Or how can I achieve my goals and my dreams now? And it's like, what you need actually is to take action now, but to be patient enough to experience the benefits long term, right? So like an investment property, like, there's nothing really I am excited about in terms, like, obviously we're excited, but like,
I'm definitely more excited.
Yeah, okay. But I just mean, like, in terms of like an investment property, it's not like I'm going on vacation, or, I'm working with a new coach, or like, you know what I mean? It's something that we won't see necessarily as a benefit until a few years. Like, it's more of like a long-term investment, right? A long-term benefit. But we had to take action now. So if we didn't take action now, then in 3 or 4 years, we're not going to be able to enjoy it. But most people who want instant gratification, it's like they want something now, so they do something now, but then they don't see results right away. And like, that's what frustrates them, right? Whether it's working on your health, working on, your business, working on your fitness, whatever it is, it's like, you have to take the action now, but be willing to be patient in order to see results, right? In anything.
How do you feel about this decision? Because one thing, like, that obviously we talked about was, you were always like, I trust you, right? Which obviously I appreciate that. And by the way, the trust wasn't just from Lorna. It was involving my family. It was involving her family. And, we'll talk a little bit about what's actually involved, because I didn't really fully understand what would be involved in this second purchase. But how do you feel about this decision that we made in terms of buying a rental?
Honestly, like, I just like, I think I like trust you so much that you know what the heck you're doing. And even when you don't know, maybe you always figure it out though. Like, you're the type of person that's always like so resourceful. And I think we've always been that way. When we first had our fitness studio, and this is kind of off topic, but like, when we had our fitness studio, I didn't take business. Like, we both didn't take business. We just figured it out. It's like, you followed your heart, you followed your passion, and you just make it work. We were resourceful. We hired coaches. We asked questions. We were part of like masterminds. Like, you put yourself in rooms and groups with people who are doing what you want to be doing, and then that just like helps you pave the way. So when it comes to this rental property, I mean, it's like I just trust that either you know what you're doing or you're gonna figure it out, because you've always been that way. And like there's been that trust with everything that we've done in our life. I've never really second guessed, because we've always made things happen. If we wanted it, we didn't know how to do it, we've always made it happen.
Yeah, I agree from the making it happen part. Like I'll openly admit, I don't know all of the steps, but I only need to know and enough. I think we've talked about this with a few decisions. Is for me, there's a line where once I know enough, sure I could know more, but all I need is to know that I know enough. I know enough to make a decision. And I really think, this investment, like and your family's different from mine, but my family didn't have a plan. They didn't have a plan for retirement. They didn't have a plan for savings. They taught me nothing about money. I had to figure out payments and credit cards and everything on my own. But the most important thing was, when I see that my parents can't do something, or when I see that we don't have a family legacy, like I really envision this as the start of, I can see us at 55 having 10 rental properties. And when our kids come into this world and their kids come into this world, they have an asset or money or something that they can start and continue to build with. I want not the name of Costa, because I'm not a name person, but I want our family to actually be able to, like something I really admired it's one of your neighbors in Mississauga. They have an investment pool where they invest with all of their family members. There's no ego. There's no, I'm only going to do this by myself. It's everyone helping everybody because they're a family. My family could never afford to do that. They couldn't afford to make those mistakes or to take a risk like that. And I think you and I, growing up and having a family who did support us, and especially with this, like, because we work for ourselves, we don't have a fixed income, meaning the banks didn't like us for a mortgage for this place. They were like, even though we had at that point with the studio made like close to, I think it was like $850,000, they were like, your business has only been working for 2 years, so you're not approved for a mortgage. So when we bought this home, Lorna had to co-sign with my parents.
And now the rental property, Andrew is co-signing with my parents. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's entrepreneur problems. Yep. Even though it's not a problem, but it's just like, I think that's something to be aware of as well too. Like, I kind of want like to, maybe we can share some like tips or whatever. Like, obviously we're not.
Yeah, like, no, share like
or whatever.
Exactly. We're not financial advisors.
Yeah.
Right. But
I think that's something to be aware of, because like, when you think about wanting to buy an investment property, it's not just you. If you're an entrepreneur, like, it's like you might have to have somebody co-sign with you, because that was our case for this and the investment property.
And co-signing, by the way, is a risk. And by a risk, I mean the person who co-signs is saying that they're willing to back you on that mortgage. And we've had people co-sign in many different things. Like, our family has never gifted us money, but in terms of what they've done for us is they've basically backed us on a lot of our ventures. So for example, when we had our studio, we had to co-sign a lease, and my parents co-signed the lease for that space, basically saying that me and Lorna would make the payments every month. If we missed just one payment, it would have been my parents who would have been on the line for that. And even for this house here, so Lorna said that she co-signs with my parents. If we miss a mortgage payment, my parents are liable for that. So what they weren't able to give us from a money perspective, they put their name on the line, their credit on the line, so we can explore these things. And just like with this rental property, I had to have a conversation with her dad and say, look, we're still self-employed. We've had this company now for I don't know how long. Like, I mean, well, Fit for All has been 7 years, I think, since Mobilink. Doesn't matter. 7 years, and the bank's like, your business could go under at any time, so you still need to co-sign, because banks only want to work with people which are called, which I discovered, A lenders. So this is someone who has guaranteed income from a company that's very stable, who has very, very high level of assets or things that the bank can take from you in case you don't pay. And being young and self-employed, we have very little assets, at least from the bank's perspective, and our income is dependent on us.
Yeah. I think like we can talk even about like the steps that we had to take to even get to this point. So like something that I was kind of like frustrated on, because it's like when we were in the process of searching for a rental property, you want to get an inspection, because the last thing that you want is to purchase a property and the next thing you know, the roof needs to be fixed and you're spending $40,000-$50,000, or there's something wrong in the basement, or like whatever. So when we were looking, we were also dropping money on an inspection, even when we didn't know whether we were going to put an offer on the house. And I think that's like pretty typical when you're like moving and stuff like that. But you know, we had to do that. And then
not to that, but like, so we did in a total of so I think I saw 32 or 33 homes. And by the way, these homes, the way that people live, like, people don't all live like this. They don't. People live with mold on the walls. Like, I left a place, and I'm actually kind of grateful, because I think if I had taken you through all of the rental houses, there's no fucking way you would have been in the rental thing. Like, I literally left a place that when I left that man's home, it left me emotional. I was like, how can a landlord let another human being live like this? Like, this man, he had tuberculosis, or this medication all over his counter. He had mold from the bottom of the wall all the way up to the ceiling, and he was literally in a dying state, and this mold was literally hazardous. And he had like a toilet that wasn't working in a small room that had no mirror. Like, it was one of the worst things that I'd ever experienced, and he was paying to live in that condition. And that to me was like, if I'm going to be a landlord and we're going to do this, I don't want anyone to ever live in that condition, because that's not the way that you treat another human being. Yes, it's a transaction, it's money, someone is paying rent to me, but if I could not live like that, I don't want anybody else living like that. So these inspections, while like some people were like, I don't know why you bought so many, they were important.
Yeah.
Because the last thing that I want is to find this issue that makes where someone's living it unlivable, but a part of that also was not like, we were really interested in this one place that actually had 3 units, but Lorna kept telling me like if I was getting a little desperate, right? Because we were like 6 or 7 months in, and I was like, fuck it, this one.
So he like came home and he shared about this triplex, and you were like, yeah, it's good, but like this needs to get done, and this needs to get done, and this needs to get done. And like the quote, what was the quote?
It was $176,000 to fix this place.
To fix the place, let alone buy the place. And I was like, this is batshit crazy. I'm like, there's not like, what are you even talking about? And then he was like, oh no, but like it's a nice place. And I was like, hold on, like we're not here to settle. And I think that's where like I really drew the line. I'm like, listen, I'm all about doing this investment property, but I'm not going to just do it to like check off the box and be like, we did it for long term. But like it also needed to make sense. And I felt like there was a little bit of like settling for you there of like, I haven't found anything yet. So let's just go back to this one. And when I realized that it wasn't the one because you were looking at other places.
Yeah.
And when you were looking at other places and nothing lived up to your expectation, you went back to that one. Right.
I think as well too, realtors, you know, people around you that work in investing, you have to realize that, like, although people are like, we have your best interest at heart, and our realtor she's a phenomenal, she helped us with this place, helped us with the other place. Those people have a horse in the race. They want you to invest so they make money. And I was getting a lot of recommendations like, this is the spot, like you guys should put an offer on this, and like, you know, like it's gone down another 20K. And sometimes the best way, which I don't know if I'm going to explain this right, is like, I don't, I'm still working on following intentionally. She is very good with her gut feeling and stuff. My gut was intuition. My gut was telling me this isn't the place, but everyone else was telling me this is the place.
You were overriding your intuition.
And it was like, oh, but I can make the numbers work. Oh, but maybe we do the renovations in stages. And ultimately I was settling, and it got to a point where I was like, you know what, this isn't the one. And I told the realtor, I think you need to step up and you need to find more places because this isn't the one. It's a no, we're not going to go with this. And then they started looking out in different areas. And then you and I had a conversation on redefining where we want this spot, you know, because we were looking like super, super close to our home. And that's when, you know, our realtor was like, well, there are other options if you're willing to look at other cities.
Well, also too, so we moved into a new build. So this was completely new build, and
whoa, don't snort your coffee, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God. That was terrible.
Get some water.
We're good.
Whew. We're good, as you can barely open your eyes or speak.
Oh man.
So we moved into a new build, and there's actually like a bunch of people renting here. So there are still homes in our little area where there's empty houses. So when we were in the process of looking for an investment property, we saw like all of these signs in front of our house, like, you know, for sale or renting or all these things. And we're like, oh, like maybe we can buy one like next door, because we knew the builder. It was very well done. Like we were very satisfied with our house. So we're like, it makes sense to, you know, buy one of these, and it's going to be super close in case they need anything. Like how convenient. But it just didn't make sense, like financially, in terms of like the return on investment. It just didn't make sense. And also, I mean, having like a tenant or whatever, like next door.
Yeah, it was our mortgage advisor who has these 16 properties, who was like, listen, these are all the costs that you have to factor in. And ultimately, having a rental is not about making thousands of dollars a month. That's not like, even our rental, once it's fully tenanted, is not going to do that. It's about covering the expenses so someone is paying that payment for you. And when we had done the math, it would have cost us, you know, close to $3,600 to $4,000 a month, and we would have only been able to rent the space for $2,400. So that doesn't make sense. It's not advantageous to us to do that. And then another thing that he said too was like, if you have a tenant next door and you do have issues, you've now brought those issues into your home.
Yeah.
You see them every day. Like if they miss a payment and they're next door, I'd want to strangle a human being, right?
You
like
would not, obviously.
No, obviously not. But what I'm saying is
because
emotionally, right? Like, yes, disclaimer, I'm not gonna whack somebody or whatever, right?
Like I'm not moving next to Andrew.
Emotionally, right? It's like, you know, every single time you would see someone and you would have that
It would
argument,
just be awkward.
that frustration, that
Yeah.
awkwardness, that it would be there. And that's when he was like, maybe you do need to consider another city or something where you can have a respectful relationship, but not be breathing down your tenant's neck.
Yeah, and then I think also too, across from us, there's new builds that are coming as well too. So we were in this place of like, we don't know how much they're going to be. We don't know when they're going to be up. Even if they start, doing the foundation or whatever, like it's going to take like about like a year or like a year and a half at least to like be able to have this. And like, it was just like we don't know the right thing, and sometimes you would ask me like, what do you think? Like even when we're thinking about like an old build compared to a new build,
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know what the best thing to do is, right? And there were so many different things to factor. Like, do we wait for a new build? That could be a really good opportunity because when we moved into our house, we got our like a good return on investment like pretty quickly. So like, do you go into an old one and potentially have to spend all this money on like renovations? Do you wait for the new build? Like, and I think it's just honestly a matter of, like we said at the beginning, just take action on something. Like, especially if it's like your first time doing anything, whether it's an investment property or just taking action on anything, the most important thing is to take action and you learn from it. This is going to be our first time. Yeah. We're going to learn a lot, but then the second time, the third time, the fourth, fifth, it's going to be so much easier because
another thing too is about being realistic about what you can actually do by yourself. So like, although my family is in construction, I'm not a handy human being, right? Like it took me more than 5 hours to install a fan in our bedroom.
We
right?
still have Google doorbell.
That like I can't even install a doorbell.
It's been a year and a half. I think if we probably like watched a YouTube video, we probably could do it.
It's got something to do with turning off the electrical panel though, and like I get weird around electricity, so like I can't find.
What do you think you're gonna like?
Who knows, right? Like last thing, like how did Andrew die? Oh, he was attaching a Google doorbell. He passed away, right? I don't want that. So extreme. I know, right? I've got a paranoid thing about electricity. Even when fixing cars, I had an issue with electricity. So for me, it's like, okay, being realistic. I'm not a handy person. So walking through these rentals, I wasn't like, oh, I can replace that floor. Oh, I can knock out those kitchen cabinets. No, Andrew can't do that. Andrew can destroy, he cannot rebuild.
Lorna can't do it either.
So that for us was like, okay, there can be some renovations, but not so much that we can't handle them or so much that we can't afford to hire somebody. The other thing with the rental that we were looking at was, how many tenants do we want to have, right? One of the disadvantages of buying a house where you only have one tenant is if one person doesn't pay, now you're out the whole cost of the mortgage. Where if you have, let's say, a duplex, which is what we picked up, or a triplex, which is 3 units, if for some reason one person can't make a payment that month and they pay you next month, it's not a big deal because the entire mortgage is split between multiple people. It lowers the risk.
See, it's so weird. I think like we had differences on that. Like I never once in my mind thought somebody wouldn't pay. Like I was mind blown when you were like, but what if they don't pay? I'm like, what do you mean? It's their mortgage. Like, what do you mean they're not going to pay?
People are not like us.
I know, but like for me, like, I'm like, obviously we're going to find a family or we're going to find a nice person. Like, I think I just always assume everyone's like super nice and everyone's like us, that like, it's an obvious thing. Like, so when you were saying like, what if they don't pay? I was literally so confused. I was like, what do you mean? So we also had to make sure that even with this duplex or whatever, it's like, if they can't pay, it's like we also have to.
We have to be able to pay.
We have to pay. We have to, have that money just in case. And I literally I thought that was crazy. I'm like, what do you mean? We're gonna have a renter? Like, obviously they're gonna pay. Like,
what's crazy, at least in Canada, and I should say in Ontario, because there's different laws everywhere. Here, and this is to protect the tenant, which is a good thing. if you can't just kick somebody out for no reason. Like in the States, if they cut the grass the wrong way, you could say, you've got to go. But here, to protect people, to give them a place to live, to make sure that they're safe and sheltered, you can't have someone leave. The process to evict somebody, even if they damage your home or do something bad, can take up to a year. So if you have someone in your place and they decide not to pay, that person could be there up to a year and you're still responsible to make those payments.
Mhm.
So we still have to make sure that it's something that we can cover. Now, of course, we're going to work our best to make sure that we're finding kind people and that we have a respectful relationship,
Mhm.
but that risk is always there. So
Yeah.
these are things that we needed to consider when picking up this place. And that's kind of when we had we had decided on a different location, Brantford, and then that's when we found our magical property where kind of everything fell in alignment. So
Yeah, and I think too, like back in 2021, a little bit into 2022, remember when I had that coach that I was paying a significant amount of money each month, right?
weekend shit, like it's not a
Yeah,
it's
no,
not a big,
we were paying over like $4,600 for a business coach. And that went on for like 9 months, basically. So we knew that we did that for like 9 months, like an extra $4,600 every single month for this business coach, which was great and stuff. So when I was no longer working with that coach, we were like, okay, if we were able to do that for 9 months, like if we have this investment property and let's say somebody doesn't pay or whatever, it's like we've done it for 9 months of that amount of money. So like we should be okay. And I think that was actually really good because it's like we almost like had trust, at least for me. I'm like, when we were saying like, about the mortgage payments, I'm like, listen, like we were paying this coach literally like 4,800 bucks every single month. I think we're going to be good.
yeah.
You know?
It's so interesting because like of the two of us, you're that person who has the high level of intuition, who is even in a feminine and masculine state aside, you have a high level of trust that things will work. And me, I almost have to see the plan, or like I crunch the numbers and I'm like, if this happens, or what happens if this happens, and I'm always looking at things, which is why it's so funny. Sometimes I feel like I am the negative one because I consider these things and you're like, what do you mean that somebody
I get
wouldn't
so
pay,
confused
right?
sometimes. I'm
And
like,
I'm like,
your
look, I'm not
mind
trying to
goes
be
there.
negative, but
Yeah.
like in looking at all of the situations, that you have to look at the other side as well too, right?
That's true.
But one thing which I can say, which has probably been, I'll say, the second time in my life that I can easily recognize my intuition, because the first time was for you. Oh,
I don't even think you knew what an intuition was when
no,
you
but okay, I followed my internal gut, and that obviously was like, I got to marry this girl. So damn, that's how that happened. And the second time was with this rental property when our realtor came up with this listing. He gave me a call and he was like, "Hey, this meets all your conditions, but more importantly, this one's different. Like we should see this like tomorrow." And it was something that had come up on the market. The unit, which was so strange to me, it was very, very good in terms of price. The person was making money with it, but it was an older couple and they basically just wanted to pull their money out. They wanted more money for their retirement. So this couple had multiple retirement properties, or rental properties, and they were selling another one. So from the price to even the fact that it was a duplex and the renovations were very minimal, I was like, you know what, let's go and let's take a look at it. And when I walked through, I knew, and I was like, this is the one. And I came back home and was like, this is the one, and it was on for 399,000, which I thought was too cheap. And The second level unit was already fully finished, and the bottom had a tenant which we had not met yet, but the unit was clean enough, and it required very, very little work, and it was only 40 minutes away from us, right? So that's when we ended up starting the process to put in that offer. Everything from when we saw the place to even the way we put in the offer, it just lined up.
Honestly, though, like when we put in the offer, I was like, like we're probably not gonna get it. Because like we like it, I don't know, like I feel like it was like there were so many other people bidding on it, and like I
Yeah,
had
there were 4 other
we
people.
had zero expectations. We kept on saying like if it's meant to be, it will be, but like who knows? And I remember we were like sitting on the couch, and then you got that call, and you're like, holy shit, we got it. And I was like, what the frick? I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Like zero expectations. But I think that was really good because when you go in with like these high expectations and let's say we didn't get it, we would have been so disappointed, right? I think that's what happened with Costa Rica. We were like so disappointed, like, wait, we can't make this happen right now. And with that, it was like, at least for me, I had like zero expectations. And then when it happened, I was like, holy crap, like, wow.
Yeah, it becomes real very quickly, because
Yeah.
when you make an offer and someone accepts it, you still don't think it's real until you actually get keys. But the crazy part about it is, so we did the inspection. So when I saw the place, and because we had to move quickly on this, because there was only a week from when they put it on the market, there was only I think it was less than a week, 6 days before they were taking offers. Because real like deals, by the way, they happen lightning fast. Although the paperwork is stupid slow, the sales on good homes happen very quickly. So I brought, the first time we saw it, an inspector there with us, and he's a good friend of ours, Tim. He was phenomenal. And he walked through and he was like, dude, this is a good place.
Yeah.
He was like, bones are great, no issues, cosmetic stuff. He was like, this is a good spot. Like, and he's like, what's the price? And I told him the price. And he was like, oh, dude, like it's a good spot. So it was at that point that we're like, we will make the offer and we'll do it. When we made the offer, we tried to limit as many conditions as possible to make us appealing. Our mortgage advisor was a little slow and painfully slow. Oh man, but we weren't able to drop the condition of financing, but we put it in because we had already been pre-qualified before. And I wrote up a small little blurb to send to the person for the deal as well, talking about how we're newly married, how this is our first rental property, and how
Basically,
we're
like, look how cute we
excited.
are. Like,
That's
give
right.
it to
Okay.
us. Like, we're so cute.
And that was actually the difference. That was actually the difference between whether or not they accepted us or not. So what ended up happening was this. Our financing lapsed like 2 days before
Literally
we put the
2
offer
days
in,
before.
because our mortgage advisor was slow on the trigger. He wasn't able to get us the deal. The deal was like, you got to put in the deal at 6 o'clock on a Thursday. It's 5:58. I didn't hear anything from him. So I'm like, all right, I guess we're putting the condition of financing in. So although the property was on for $399, there were multiple people who were in. So we had to go in with the best offer possible. When I was talking to Lorna, I said, I know what this deal is worth. I know what we can afford. 440,000 is the maximum that we can go in on this. I said, if it's $1 more, it doesn't make sense, and we walk away. And that's where our detachment came from, was above this, it doesn't make sense for us. And at that point, I'm no longer interested.
Yeah.
So we put in this offer. We gave this little sweet little note that I put in. And the older couple, they read the note and they called our realtor. We didn't know this. They called our realtor and they were like, look, how solid, how good is your financing? And the mortgage and the realtor said, hey, their financing lapsed 2 days ago. It's good. It's just more of a formality to get it re-signed. And they accepted our deal out of 4 other offers. Our deal wasn't the highest in money, but we were willing to take the property as it was. And we had a compelling story. They're like, hey, we'll go in with this, we'll go with your offer. It's they think it's great that you're having a first property. Remember when the realtor actually wanted us to put
Go
more money?
higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, because like, again, I'm just like, well, if we really want this, like, let's go higher. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you think? And you were so set. You're like, no, this is the maximum.
No, not even $1. We came in 440,
Yeah.
and our realtor was like, you should go 500. And by the way, the appraisal for that property came back at 615. So we did really, really well.
Yeah.
But I was like, based off of what I have to do with it and where our payments are, makes 0 sense to go $1. And I was very adamant, and I said, I'm not going $1 over. And he was like, all right, it is what it is. And he didn't tell me this. He told me this on the phone after we got the deal. But he was like, I truly did not believe that at that price you were going to get it. And I said, we talked about it. And when he called, even the surprise in his
We
voice,
were
he
like
was like,
chilling on the couch.
it was like 9:30 or
We
something.
were like just like chilling on the couch, and then you answer, and you're like, oh, it's the realtor. Like, okay, you're just gonna find out the information, and you're like, holy shit, like we just got it. And we just like were like what the heck, like, we called our parents and we're like, oh my gosh, like it actually is official.
Now an interesting thing about, so once that deal went in, I called my parents first, and we called her parents second. Okay. Here's the difference in headspace. And this
Wait,
is,
did we call your parents first or mine first?
No, we called mine first. I think. We called both.
No, because remember my dad froze for a second.
Oh yeah. He froze.
We like called my parents first, and we're like, yeah, we got the property, and my dad was like, oh. And he just like, there was like nothing that came out of his mouth, but he's like, congratulations. But like, I think he was like super shocked as well too, because.
But he's also the one who like co-signed for it, so he's probably like, oh shit.
Well, they better make their payments.
But like, so yeah. But his shock came from happiness and surprise, and he was saying how proud of us that he was. And your parents growing up differently are very like, you guys could do anything, we believe in you 1,000%. And it was really great. And then I called my parents, and I was so excited. I was like, hey, we got it. And like, my mom was like, well, don't celebrate yet, like don't celebrate until you get the keys. And then my father was like, oh, well, like, the place is old, it still needs renovations, like, are you sure you guys made the right choice? And it really made me realize, not that again that they did anything bad, right? The headspace difference, I think, and the reason why my parents never really focused on that, it's because they don't have the headspace that we do, and where we believe that anything's possible. We believe that we will succeed at everything.
Yes. And also though, I think it's having also somebody that believes in you. Like, I know that I believe in you, and I know you believe in me, so it allows me to take greater risks. So I feel like sometimes if maybe you grew up or something like that, and you had somebody maybe not believing in you and you not believing in yourself, I think it's that much harder. Like, I'm the type of person that if I want something, I'm going to go after it. But ever since meeting you, it's like we've actually like made things into fruition, like even our businesses and stuff. Like, I think it was also because of you, like a huge part of that, of why we actually like did a lot of things, because even this investment property, honestly, I don't think if I was like by myself, that I would even think about an investment property. I'm like, I would think more shorter term maybe, and like, let's just go on vacation and like, let's just save, like, you know, and you're the type of person that is like kind of like actually does the things, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
I wouldn't say that like in terms of I'm the only person out of both of us that do like I understand what you're saying by that, but
I think
I
it's more
think
in
what
terms of
happens
this
is
investment property.
yeah, like I think I spend more time looking towards the future because my parents didn't. And because of that, they had to be very reactive with everything that they did. They had to make decisions based off of where are we right now? And we don't want to live with limitations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whereas you make decisions for today because you want to live this very, and I believe everybody should live this way, a passion filled life, free from restriction, and really this place where you get to wake up and do what you want every day.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought that that was possible until like you started breaking boundaries and barriers in your business and you started showing me what was possible, and then I was like, holy shit. So I think we complement each other really well
But I think it
in
is
that.
important to have that partner because, you know, I'm sure you probably still would have done that investment property, but I'm sure like my trust in you also help with that. And then, you know, like I said, I think it's important to have self-belief or other people believing you. And if you didn't have that growing up, I think it might be hard to believe that somebody else can do it because you've never really seen it like done before.
I think though, like your the people and the culture that are around you really initially define what your ceiling is.
Mm-hmm.
And like every all throughout life, it's through the jobs I've had and even the positions, no one ever thought about being more. You have a job, you settle into that job, you make a certain money, you live within that money, and there's never any growth or like even the words personal development. No one in my family talked about personal development.
Yeah.
No one.
Same.
And these limitations, like I think what really opened up our eyes is as we started to build our business and hang around with people who grew and were talking about personal development all the time, we started realizing like, holy shit, we actually don't have the ceiling. It doesn't exist. We can actually do these things like all of these other people. Mm-hmm. Like if the clients that hire us can have 6 rental properties, we can have a rental property. We definitely can. Like mm-hmm. if they can do it and they're not rental people, like one's a chemist, one's that, like it's they're not, it's not special, you know. I think one thing that I will say though is I understand why everybody doesn't do these things, because it's stupidly difficult to do it, especially your first time.
Mm-hmm. Well, like we said, it's, you know, unless somebody in your family has done it and they can guide you the way, you have to figure this out on your own. Like, you know, like up until like literally this point of getting the keys, you were still like asking questions and figuring things out. And, you know,
there are still things I don't know, like in terms of our next steps, how we get people to sign landlord agreements, who's responsible for that, how am I going to manage a tenant, there's a lot of question marks.
But I think for many people, I think the reason that they don't do it is they see all the things. It's like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, so I'm not going to do it. But I think for us, it's always been like, I'm going to do it and then I'm going to figure it out versus I'm going to get all my ducks in the row. And I think this is just, again, with anything, whether it's an investment property or, your health and fitness or whatever, your relationship or whatever, it's like, do it and then you learn, you figure it out, and you just become better, right? And I think that's like the moral of this episode is to just take that action despite the fear, despite not knowing everything. Like you're never going to know it all. So
because at every step of the way, it would have been easy for both of us to see a barrier and say, well, this is where my journey ends. Like at first it was, hey, you're going to need another cosigner, and my parents couldn't cosign because they cosigned for this house, right? So that was barrier number one, right? Is, do we have the trust from, her parents for them to be able to co-sign for this? Barrier number two was we had to give literally 3 years worth of financials. Remember how much paperwork was involved? I spent probably close to 60 hours through this entire process just doing paperwork. My financials, my savings, her savings, her family's financials. And then we had to go into all of the nitty gritty, our taxes, the paperwork, accountants that wouldn't give us what we needed, CRA that wouldn't give us what we needed. It was really difficult for us to even get a pre-qualification. And then once we had the pre-qualification, then step two was we had to find the property. And at any time I could have walked through those houses and given up at any moment, right? And we talked about a lot of times, like, is it the right time? Do we even continue with this? We had tons of conversations with it. And then the third barrier was time. We both have businesses to run, and while she trusted me a lot with this stuff, I was spending at least 10 to 12 hours every week looking at places, getting paperwork.
And that's what I said. I said, we're going to do this, but I don't want it to take away from definitely not my business and definitely not your business as well, too. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, that's not the main priority in our life right now, truly. Like, and I'm like, it's fine to do this, but you're not going to put that above, our businesses that we have right now. Like, of course you got to put time and effort into something. And there's a time and a place for that. But like, how can you work that around your current schedule right now versus like, you're going to spend so much time doing all of this and then,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I agreed with that wholeheartedly, because at the end of the day, and it's something we actually learned with we should talk about our business structure and everything. But like,
That's right.
I know, but when you're doing multiple things, your time, you don't do that thing effectively, and the rental property is something that once people are in there, it's not going to take an obscene amount of time. But to get approved and set up and ready and get the insurance and get the paperwork and work with a lawyer to get closing documents and then negotiate with another lawyer to make sure that the transfer of stuff it takes a lot of time, and not everybody might have the knowledge or the proper team. We were fortunate that, like, we knew a killer realtor who did this every day of the week, who's even going to help us find tenants. We knew a mortgage advisor who has 16 rentals. So guess what? He was an ear for a lot of the questions that I had. Right?
And we just closed on our house. So we had somebody for the insurance
and the
realtor, the lawyer. So it's like, we just worked with the same people again, So I think that was like, they were good connections.
Yeah. And that's where having a team and a professional is really important.
Yeah.
Like, we hire coaches when we don't know how to do things, and we hire professionals whenever we need to get things done, because they help us ascend to the next level. We don't know everything in the world, and even the home inspections, right? I could have bought a home without the home inspection, but we needed it because he can look at it electrical and be like, that's going to cost you 10 grand. I wouldn't have known by looking at it. And it's important that we had that team. So we made the decision, we had the team to put into place, we followed our gut, and we were like, this is the one. We stuck to the intuition, where it was like, I'm willing to, this is how far we're willing to go with this. And it worked. This property literally fell into place like stumbling blocks. No,
building blocks.
Yeah, no, building blocks. That's what it is. Fell in a place like building blocks, and it worked out for us.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a big thing. So yeah, I think with this episode, hopefully you can take some of the strategy. I really think, everything, even in our business, you want to have multiple streams of income. You want to have your money work for you. So if you have a bunch of money sitting in an account, either invested in something or